about 2 months ago, there were hearings in the U.S. Congress, and the chairman of the relevant committee said that flagged expropriation without compensation not only as a risk to South Africa's economic future, but also to its future as a constitutional democracy.
The Africa Growth and Opportunity Act Forum is being held in South Africa at the moment, started on the 2nd of November and is finishing on the 4th in Johannesburg. Despite South Africa's interesting foreign policy stances over the last year or two, the forum has gone ahead, and it looks like it will be renewed in 2025, and South Africa will remain part of AGOA. Let's see what the country's government can do within the next year or two to put even more doubt into that possibility. Joining me to discuss AGOA and possible risks or threats to its renewal is Terence Corrigan from the Institute of Race Relations. Terence, thanks very much for your time once again here at the CRA. Just to start off with framing a bit of the discussion around AGOA, you've got Minister Patel, the Minister for Trade, and many other things as well, but the main focus is trade, talking up the importance of AGOA and the benefits thereof, trading with the world's quote-unquote most capitalist economy. What do you think in terms of maybe I don't know if it's a disconnect between some of South Africa's domestic policy choices with industrial policy interfering in the economy versus then wanting to establish free trade and lower barriers to trade, lowering tariffs, all that kind of thing, with this very capitalist free market economy?
Well, I think it comes to understanding the kind of unique arrangement that AGOA is. Remember, this is not a trade deal. This is a unilateral trade concession that the United States, through its Congress, offers to particular countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, this comes out of the thinking in the 1990s that Africa's problems were largely a result of poor governance, but also the solution to it and to its developmental malaise was going to be through value-added economic integration into the world economy. In other words, this was the kind of trade, not aid mantra. Now, what AGOA does is it says that those countries that are participating may import or export certain product lines into the United States without American tariffs, and they kind of get this with no reciprocal strings attached. They are, however, required or expect to, as I say, show progress towards a market economy, democracy, human rights, kind of, let's say, broad American values. Now, I think to the minister, who I think is not very controversial to say has a particular protectionist bent, this is great. We get certain benefits without opening ourselves up to the associated costs. Where does the risk lie, however, is that much of what he would like to see implemented in South Africa would be, let's say, anomalous to the requirements that membership and participation in AGOA require. For instance, they talk about the protection of property rights. We've seen concerns about EWC. They talk about openness to American trade and investment. That's something which I would say that the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition is distinctly lukewarm about. So no, I think that from his point of view, this is about as close as you get to a mercantilist deal in favor of South Africa as it gets.
Terence, on the question of expropriation specifically, the expropriation bill currently winding its way through the various corridors of government and of power has been approved by the National Assembly. I think currently with the National Council of Provinces.
That's correct, yes.
I'm wrong. So let's assume that this is passed before 2025, which in all likelihood could be, because it would be another sort of signal on the part of the Ramaphosa administration that they're committed to what they promised throughout various policy conferences, et cetera, et cetera. Assuming it is passed, what do you think then is the risk to AGOA? Because if AGOA requires, for example, the protection of property rights, I mean, the expropriation bill fundamentally dilutes those.
Yeah, look, I think that AGOA is one of these systems with many moving parts. there have been concerns directly germane to AGOA and to South Africa's policy trajectory in the United States. So about 2 months ago, there were hearings in the U.S. Congress, and the chairman of the relevant committee said that flagged expropriation without compensation not only as a risk to South Africa's economic future, but also to its future as a constitutional democracy. My sense of it is that because this is a unilateral concession, and because this is a significant tool for, let's say, incentive / leverage that America has over and with its peer countries in sub-Saharan Africa, that there will be many other considerations. And I think that it is seen over the last, particularly over the last 2 years, of South Africa that seems to be very self-consciously yawing towards the Russian and Chinese orbit, which I don't know why this would be news. It's something that both the ANC and the government has sort of advertised for a long time, and I think overt hostility towards the United States and its core allies. But I don't think I think that there is a sense that this still puts a positive American capital into the South African discourse. So remember that I think about 62,000 jobs or something in that in that range hinge on AGOA access. I'm not sure the exact number, but the loss of these things is going to be felt by ordinary companies and ordinary South Africans. And I think that the Americans would be cognizant that there is probably far more a far warmer feeling towards the United States on the part of ordinary South Africans and the business community. And even amongst labor activists who tend to be on the sort of extreme left of the economic spectrum, understand the links between access to the American market and their members' jobs. That to cut that off would, I think, be, in American policy terms, perhaps an element, an exercise in self-immolation. I think it would perhaps do more damage than the message it would send. However, once again, remember, this is a American domestic choice, so there could well be interest in America that would, for whom that sort of signaling would be of greater importance than what the outcome might be.
And Terence, just a final question on the way forward. So there have been some reports emanating from the US that they want AGOA to continue, but with changes, not just for South Africa, but the whole sort of the structure. Are countries benefiting from not? How do they utilize it better or not?
Right.
If I were to put you in the sort of US lawmakers or congressmen, that might be dangerous for all of us, but in that pair of shoes, what changes do you think could then be pushed for in terms of the AGOA framework, and then its renewal in 2025?
I'm not sure really. I know that from the South African perspective, at least the nominal official perspective, is the idea of linking it to the African free trade area. Although I must say I'm not entirely sold that on the idea that the South African government is particularly committed to this, and certainly many of its peers, have signed up for this pro forma, but I think would not relish the loss of customs revenues. I think that that's something that the United States would probably be interested in. I do think that there are probably major concerns with rules of origin. Part manufacturers. I think that with the current talk about friendshoring, there are probably some considerations about whether countries that are increasingly seen as less palatable to the United States should be benefiting indirectly through this. Although, once again, I'm not sure that you can really unscramble that omelet. But yes, I think that certainly from the American administration, this is irrespective of whether it's Republican or Democrat, they their objective would be to see that this produces benefits that are recognized both by the states and by their peoples as being recognized as originating in the United States. Once again, this is economic diplomacy. Certainly, China expects the Belt and Road Initiative to develop to deliver economic diplomatic gains for it. No reason why the United States wouldn't expect the same for its offerings.
Thank you very much for watching. Let us know in the comments below your thoughts on AGOA. Will it be renewed or not? And if so, under which changes or conditions? Until next time, this has been Chris Hattingh for the Center for Risk Analysis. Take care.